Do you feel like your beats don't sound original? Are you worried about sounding exactly like other producers? In today's video, I want to talk about the 3 stages of how to find your own beat making style, and it's probably not the way you think it is. So let's start out by talking about where you are now. Most likely, you started making beats because there's a producer out there who really inspired you. They are the reason you wanted to make beats in the first place. But this is where you might run into your first problem. As you start making more and more beats, you start to find that your beats sound very similar to theirs. Or worse yet, you notice that your beats sound a lot like other aspiring beat makers. And so you start to panic because you feel unoriginal and that your production won't stand out if there are so many other producers who sound exactly like you. Well, here's the good news. You are on the right path. You're just at stage 1, the imitation stage. This is the stage where you're pretty much gonna sound exactly like other producers. And this is completely natural because when you first start out, you have no idea what you're doing. You don't have the skills or knowledge to create anything, let alone your own original ideas. So in this stage, you're gonna be gaining that skill and knowledge, but to do so, it can actually be a good idea to imitate. The reason why is because it gives you your North Star, a reference point to compare your beats against. You set a standard for yourself, which is to achieve a sound similar to your favorite producer. To share a quick story, this is exactly what I went through when I first started out. For about the first 2 years of my journey, I didn't want to imitate. I prided myself on being super original. But I found that whenever I go back to listen to my beats, they would just sound like a random assortment of sounds put together. I just lacked that core skill and knowledge needed since my learning was just directionless. But that's exactly what the imitation stage can help you with. I eventually tried my best to imitate how the Alchemist beat sounded, or how Dilla's beat sounded, or a Mobb Deep beat. And as I did this more and more, I gained a better understanding of how to put a beat together, and imitating my favorite producers is what got me there. So that's the imitation stage. As you do this more and more, what will naturally occur next is the amalgamation stage. Let me explain what this stage looks like. You've learned how to imitate a handful of producers. So for me, I learned how to imitate Dilla, I imitated Mobb Deep and The Alchemist. Then I noticed something interesting started to happen. As I made more and more beats, these styles started to blend into one another, and I started to combine my influences together. Sometimes I would make a beat that had the chopping technique of The Alchemist, but the sound selection of a Dilla beat. Or I'd make a beat with the darker soundscape of a Mobb Deep beat, but the BPM of an Alchemist beat. And here is where you start to take the first steps towards developing your own style. By combining multiple styles that you've learned how to imitate, you start creating something that's unique by virtue of combinatorics. Imitating one producer isn't original, but by combining ideas from multiple producers who no one else has combined before, you can start to get to more original ideas and develop a more original style. And this is what the amalgamation stage is, putting together multiple different influences that you've learned to imitate to start to make progression towards creating your own style. But having said that, there is one problem that we haven't talked about, and that has to do with how to get to the final stage, which is origination. This is where things might get a bit controversial, but in my opinion, there is nothing more boring than someone who only listens to hip hop and ends up making hip hop beats. Their influences are just so common that even if they amalgamate all their different influences together, the outcome still isn't really interesting or unique since so many others have the exact same influences. This is why I find that the producers that actually have some experience with sampling, even if they don't sample all the time, often have more interesting beats. Not because sampling itself is some key to origination, but because listening to so many different styles of music ends up bleeding into their tastes. To go back into my story, I started off sampling the exact same stuff that everyone else did, the usual jazz and soul, but then I eventually started listening to more unique samples. 70s prog music, 80s synthwaves, 60s Eurofolk music, the style of music that's just super far removed from hip hop, and I started to grow and love this music. And eventually this started to bleed into my own music, and my own production just became much more unique because of this. And this is what the final stage, origination, really is. Purposely broadening your influences so you push yourself away from the crowd and start to develop a truly original beatmaking style that is yours and yours alone. And so this is the path to finding your own beatmaking style. If you feel like you're an imposter or you're doing something wrong by imitating others or sounding like other producers, don't worry. This is the path that many producers go down. So that's it for this video. Hopefully this has given you a pathway to making more original beats. If so, hit like and subscribe. While you're at it, head over to betterbeatmaker.com to check out my full online beatmaking course. My free drum kit's available in the description box below, as well as a link to the Discord if you want to join my producer community, and I'll see you next time.